Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Charlotte Cottrell of Christian Mom Life, where we cover faith, family, and today, pregnancy related content. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am pregnant. Pregnancy picture announcement here. It's been super exciting. I'm 7 weeks as of filming this video, and I have to say I am just over the moon. We tried for 8 months with Esther to get pregnant, and then with this baby, because it took so long with Esther and we knew we wanted our kids close in age, we started trying when she was 6 months old, and it took us about a year, although more like 10 months, because we took several months off due to 2 back-to-back chemical pregnancies in October and November. Took a break in December and then decided to not try in January, but we got pregnant anyways, which was a super major surprise considering my previous miscarriages and infertility and hypothyroidism and all that. So it was a major blessing, and the Lord knew. We just moved into a townhouse that has plenty of space for our growing family, so the Lord knew. His timing was perfect. But today I'm going to be talking about what clued me in to make me take a test, and perhaps some of my first symptoms. The first thing that tipped me off into wanting to take a pregnancy test was that I had a dream that I was pregnant. Now, for some people, this may seem really silly. A lot of people trying to conceive, it makes sense that that hope may be on your mind. But in my experience, I never have realistic dreams. All of them are very fantastical and absolutely insane. And they certainly don't have anything to do with my real life generally, but especially I have never dreamed that I was pregnant. When I was pregnant with Esther, one time in my dream, knew that I was pregnant, but it wasn't centered around being pregnant. And every other dream, I never knew that I was pregnant. I was just operating like I wasn't. So for me to dream that I was pregnant was highly unusual, but I went ahead and sort of chalked it up to, oh, it was a fluke. You know, that's really weird though. Like, I dreamed that I had taken a test and it was positive. But I thought, that can't be a sign of pregnancy because it was so early in my cycle. Even though I wasn't tracking ovulation, I have an app that was tracking sort of like my fertile window or whatever. And so, I was literally like at the most like 3 or 4 DPO. So it definitely would have been way too early for my body to know that I was pregnant, right? Like, the embryo, the zygote, wouldn't even have it implanted at that point. So I don't know, I just ignored it. But then a couple of days later, I had a second dream that I was pregnant, and that made me really sit up straight and pay attention, because 2 dreams in 1 week when I've never dreamed I was pregnant before in my recollection was just too much of a coincidence for me. In that dream, I dreamt that I was catching up with an old friend of mine and was telling them how we had moved into our new apartment, all of Esther's new developments, and hey, I'm pregnant again, and that was just, it was too much for me. So I went ahead and waited till I was 9 DPO, or days past ovulation, according to my app. Like I said, I didn't track exact ovulation, so it may not be super accurate. But I waited till I was 9 DPO, and my curiosity got the better of me, and I used one of my Concieve tests and tested, and it was negative. And I would have just left it there and waited till my period was late, except for the fact that that night I started realizing that I had been having nausea at night, and it was a little too early in my cycle to be having PMS yet, and a little bit too far past ovulation for that to be leftover ovulation symptoms. And nausea at night, especially a very mild nausea like I was having, was very much what I had with Esther. So I was starting to suspect, like, hope, and also be a little bit afraid, like, maybe after 2 chemical pregnancies. It's very scary to start testing that early, because you could get a positive and it could just fade out to nothing, and you could have your period anyways, although it's not technically classified as a period, and it's just devastating. So I was definitely hedging my bets. But I tested again the next day on 10 DPO, and there was a hint of a hope, of a shadow of a very, very, very faint line. Like, my eye was catching something, but I couldn't necessarily define it as a line or even a very, very faint line. So I went ahead and threw it away and told myself I was imagining things, and I refused to obsess because I was not gonna be that way this cycle. We weren't even trying, so I wasn't gonna like freak out. But it was enough that I did post it to my Trying to Conceive community in the What to Expect app. Highly recommend that if you're trying to conceive, by the way. Super awesome community where you can get a lot of your questions answered and just feel like you're not alone in a very lonely and sometimes very long journey. So that's not sponsored or anything, but I'd recommend that. My aunt recommended that to me. Thanks, Aunt Tessa. And that's been awesome. So long story short, I sort of posted and was like, maybe? And people were sort of like, maybe? So anyways, I decided not to stress about it. I wasn't gonna worry about it. If the line got darker the next day, then it would. And if it didn't, then it wouldn't. And there was nothing stressing could do to change it. And I was really proud of myself for basically trying to be really chill, because anyone looking at Shauna, Jeremy, and Matt, who has lived with me around the time of testing, knows that I don't do chill when it comes to pregnancy testing. So 11 DPO comes along, and there is a much darker, fairly distinct, but still very faint line. And at that point, I went ahead and decided to tell my husband. I was going to wait till I had a more defined line, but then I realized that I was starting to get slightly anxious, and I wanted to know that he was on my side, backing me up, and most importantly, praying for me, that if this was the Lord's time, if this was our rainbow baby, then I wanted him to be praying with me about it for the health of this baby. So I went ahead and showed him the test. He said that he saw it, which is very exciting. Here's the test. It's very dry now, but you may be able to see it. Sometimes they dry darker. Whoa. In just certain lights, you can just sort of barely see it. So, anyway, it made me kind of sad that I had been so chill that I had thrown away my 10 DPO test, because I would love to have it now for my progression. Line progression. I love line progressions, but whatever. I'll have to keep my 11 DPO test. So then on 12 DPO, I woke up, I was praying, like, please let it be darker, but also trying to steel myself and prepare. If it wasn't, it was totally fine. It was in the Lord's hands. And it definitely was darker that day. And I consider that my BFP, because though it was a faint line, it was a line and it was there. And then the next day, here's what my cheapie test looked like on 13 DPO. And, oh, I forgot. So on 12 DPO, that test prompted me to take a first response, and it was fairly clearly positive. You can definitely see that. So then the next day on 13 DPO, I took a first response digital test, and it said yes. I would show it to you, but it's not here. I just put a Sharpie yes on there so that I could remember which test it was. Anyway, long story short, that was how I found out. I got my BFP on 12 DPO, but you could technically say that I got it on 11 DPO, and I was highly suspect of those tests at 10 DPO. So we told our parents very shortly after. I made a big sis shirt for Esther because I could not find those anywhere. I mean, there were some online, but they were ridiculously expensive, and most of them weren't in sizes that Esther's in. So I went ahead and just made one using iron-on letters and a shirt from Walmart. I think it cost me like at most 10 bucks, but I think it was more like 6. I'll put in a picture of that here. And we told my whole side of my family, and then we waited to tell Matt's parents because they were coming for a visit for Esther's birthday, February 12th, which at this point it was late January, and it was only going to be like a week or two till they got here, and we wanted to be able to surprise them in person, which we did. If you guys are interested in that, I can upload the video of us telling our parents. It's fairly short. But ultimately, this pregnancy has already been very different from my pregnancy with Esther. A lot more intense, a lot more bloating, a lot more acne. Anyway, I won't get into it in too much detail because I'm planning on doing like a week by week symptoms update, you know, like 3 to 4 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks, 7 to 8 weeks, and so on. You know how to count, presumably. You've come this far. So that's all I have to say for now. That's how I found out that I was pregnant. We're so excited to welcome this little blessing, boy, girl, twins, whatever, into our family, and I'm so excited to take you guys along on this journey and for me to be able to have this recorded memory to look back on long after the baby's born and been a part of our family. I think that it'll be really, really special to have. So, in parting, I have a couple of questions for those who maybe are trying to conceive, those who have 1 baby, those who have 2, those who have 12, whatever. I've got some questions, and if you have answers, please leave them in the comment down below. So, for moms that have had more than 1 pregnancy, I was going to ask, was your second pregnancy easier or harder? For me, it's definitely been harder. But I've heard a lot of people say theirs was easier, but I may be getting that mixed up with labor because I've heard a lot of people say their labor was easier the second time around. So, who knows? But leave your experience down below. How early do you guys typically tell family when you're pregnant? Like I said, I told mine like the second day that we got a positive digital test. For anyone who's had chemical pregnancies, like that's the gold standard, you know, to have a test that says pregnant. But for me, I like to tell them really on because in the case of a miscarriage or anything like that, I like to know that my family is there to support me, and even if it's just in prayer or if it's in literal advice, several family members who had miscarriages themselves were very comforting to me when I had my chemical pregnancies and were very helpful. So that was really nice to know I had that support, and you definitely don't want to be isolated when you're dealing with that kind of complicated and shortened grief. And then also for those who have been pregnant or are pregnant, what was the first thing that tipped you off to being pregnant? Because I definitely did not think that the first thing that would tip me off was dreams, you know? I'm not very like superstitious. I'm definitely very religious though. You know, the sons and daughters will prophesy, the daughters will dream dreams. Like, I'm with that 100%. But it was pretty crazy to me that I genuinely, like, my body, something in my psyche, it's so interesting to me how the Lord created the human body and the brain. Somewhere inside of me, before I knew consciously, some part of my body knew I was pregnant or was going to be pregnant and told my brain, like, think about this. This is what's happening right now. So I just found that to be totally crazy. Have you guys had any crazy experiences being pregnant? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear your experience. Okay, so in closing, if pregnancy symptoms, updates, stuff like that interests you, if family life, newly married life interests you, and if faith and Christianity interests you, feel free to check out my channel, Christian Mom Life, and subscribe. Answer any of my questions down below that are applicable to you or that you think will be, or that you have thoughts and opinions on. You don't have to be experiencing something to have an opinion on it, by the way. So if you have an opinion, I would love to hear it down below. Feel free to express that. If you do subscribe, also let me know down in the comments, and I'll make sure to try and get down there and thank you personally, because I really would like to get to 200 subscribers by the end of the month. I upload every Saturday and sometimes twice a week, so stay tuned, turn on the notification bell for any future things, and I will see you in the next video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.